we're introducing physiotherapy. So anybody who's come to the gym and they have a little bit of a backache or whatever, arm problem or something, we're introducing a physiotherapy who'll be coming once a week to attend to our clients. And also we're introducing lymphatic treatments, because with all this slimming and the programs we're creating, we have a lot of drainage, like lymph node drainage. So we are introducing those treatments on a higher level. We have the normal lymphatic massage treatment, but now we want to go to a higher level that now drains anybody who is ill and they have like what do you call it, water retention and things like that, that has to be done regularly for drainage. So we are actually becoming a big holistic center. So please check our website. We'll be saying what's happening and all the promotion. I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Mukina Kivuvani, and I am a cosmetologist and an esthetician, and have been in the industry for 41 years, doing hair and beauty. 41 years. So you know you're in good hands when you come to Infinity. And my staff is as well qualified. So I'll introduce one of our beauty therapists called Yvonne, so she can explain to you about our slimming detox treatment. Come, Yvonne. Thank you so much.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Yvonne. I am a therapist at Infinity Spa and Wellness Center. Today, I'll be talking to you about our slimming detox treatment. And it is done with a body mud that is natural and infused with active ingredients that help break down the fat in our body. So when you come into the spa, we start you off with a consultation so that we can find out what your goals and your needs are for the treatment. And then we start the treatment with a Moroccan hammam scrub. So you'd go into the steam room and you go into the sauna. We're trying to activate your body's natural detox system by sweating it out. The steam also allows your skin to loosen up, become a bit moist. And then we go into the hammam treatment room where we start you off with a dry body brush to get rid of the dead skin. And then after that, we go into our Rasul chamber where we apply the mud on you. Now, having removed the dead skin from your body, your skin is open and is ready for the products. They will trigger lipolysis, which is a process where fat breaks down in your body, and we'll wrap you in that same room. As you steam with the products, they are going into your skin, and you take a shower in the same Rasul chamber. We have rainfall showers down there. After that, we go into the massage room and we do a lymphatic drainage massage. This helps remove the broken down fat from your system, and we recommend that you do a number of sessions depending on what you're trying to achieve. We'll recommend about 6 to 8 sessions that you work with us, and then we can see the progress in your body. Thank you very much, and I'll hope to see you at Infinity.
For the ladies today, we have a special for the slimming detox treatment, and the other treatments in the spa, we are offering 10% off. So ladies, keep your little card so that when you come down to the spa that we can give you your discount. So I would like to take this opportunity to introduce a special person in Infinity Spa, which is Dr. Don. Dr. Don, karibu sana. Thank you.
Thank you so much, McKenna, for the kind words. I don't really think I'm that special. I think the special person is sitting in front of me here. Thank you so much for making the time to come over this evening. It's Thursday, it's the end of the week, a lot of traffic, but your presence here actually makes me understand the magnitude of what we're going to be talking about today, because you've all taken time out of your days to come here. I'll give you a little bit of a preamble of who I am. My name is Dr. Don Othoro. I work here at Infinity Spa. We work in partnership with Infinity Spa, building the MediSpa. I also work in London and Wimbledon as a cosmetic doctor, and I've got a practice there. So why am I here talking about the menopause? So clearly, 99% of my clients are women. And through the years, and this goes back to, I've been cosmetic doctor for 17 years now. So through the years, I'd always have conversations with patients, and this is before the whole menopause conversation was happening globally. And people talk about symptoms. I'm feeling tired, I'm stressed. When I ask about medications, and this is the shocking thing, people say antidepressant. Lots of people on antidepressants. And I'll be talking to the person, I'm like, this person doesn't seem depressed or has not seemed depressed, but that was a diagnosis that doctors would be putting out before people really started to look at the perimenopause and the menopause and the effect that it was having. So gradually over time, there's a clinic in central London which started to do HRT. It's called bioidentical HRT. And I would talk to my clients and say, probably at least this sounds like the perimenopause or the menopause. And a few of my clients went there, came back, and quite literally said, you saved my career, you saved my business, you saved, not me personally, but the fact that I referred them over, you saved me wanting to quit the board of directors I was working with because of all the symptoms I was having, me thinking I'm going crazy, me thinking I'm not up to par with life in general. So that's how I got interested and involved in the perimenopause and the menopause. And there's a really amazing person sitting here, Amina, and we started these menopause conversations online because a lot of her friends were talking about it. And I'm not even sure how we got to the topic, but people said, you guys need to have a conversation because you're talking about the same thing about women and health. So we did an interesting survey, and as a doctor, we're thinking about the signs and symptoms. The signs and symptoms are hot flushes, brain fog, mood swings, dry skin, palpitations. Those are things we normally ask. Doctors rarely ask about weight. It's kind of the thing of, we refer to the nutritionist or refer to the dietitian, or, you all know how to eat sensibly. We all know this. But in that survey, the highest symptom that caused stress or distress was weight gain, especially around the belly area. So we were like, okay, this is really, really interesting. And it's ironic that I'm here talking to you, and clearly I will not ever go through the menopause, right? But it's like a fish trying to climb a tree, But this fish has spent a lot of time and a lot of hours trying to figure out how can I help my clients, how can I help people understand the medical and the non-medical aspects to this whole beast called weight gain in the menopause and the perimenopause, which a lot of people who have not gone through it, women who are not in the perimenopause, men, and I think a lot of people in the old school days, say, you just get on with it. But now it's a thing. Weight gain is a big thing. And we're here to talk about that. And I'm here to just to touch on a few points, or I'd say highlight some points that people tend to gloss over when it comes to weight gain. And the first thing is, why the weight gain? So many of my patients say, I'm eating right, I'm doing all the right things, I'm on a diet all the time, and I can't shift those 5, 10, 15 kgs that I put on. And there's scientific reasons for this. And this presentation I'm going to have today, I hate doing PowerPoints, but I'm going to do it because I want people to take in the information. And hopefully, I think, how many of you were on the webinar, online webinar? 1, 2, oh, good, 3. So at least more than half of the room wasn't there, so this is not repetition. But what we're going to do, Eric, the screen doesn't seem to be mirroring here. What we're going to do is just go over the main themes. I'm sorry, I think it's right there. Okay, we'll come sort this out, but I know the slides are. So, conquering this weight gain. Why do women put on weight in the menopause and struggle to shift it? Now, there are several things that happen. So the causes, and I'll go through each of these causes and explain them. My sister actually said the other day, like, Don, I had no idea that insomnia can cause and contribute to weight gain, because I've been doing all the right things, but I just cannot shift this weight. And each of these things, when you start to understand how these things are impacting weight, then I think we'll start having an understanding of how our lives, our lifestyle, not necessarily dieting, can actually have a big impact on the thing that bothers us, not me, but bothers a lot of women about the menopause. So Hormonal changes. So estrogen. Estrogen is called the great hormone, right? And women have estrogen receptors right from the head to your toe. Nobody really talks about this. We talk about thyroid hormone, we talk about insulin, that being essential, but estrogen is a hormone that's essential for everyday functioning. And anyone who's going through the perimenopause or the menopause knows this, because signs and symptoms start from here all the way down to your toes. So this powerful hormone increases abdominal fat storage, right? When you have a decrease in estrogen, you get more of what we call a male girth. So men tend to store fat around the tummy. When estrogen starts to drop, women start to take that. So it starts to shift from the hips and starts to go around the tummy. And people aren't told this. So they think, I'm being lazy, I'm doing the wrong exercise, I need to get a new personal trainer, I need to go on X number of diets, but something as simple as that. Understanding that actually the one female hormone that actually is responsible for how your fat is distributed, when it drops, it will change how your fat is distributed in your body. So that's a really powerful thing. The hormone changes actually do cause an increase in weight. Your metabolism is a really, really interesting thing. Now, this conversation has happened throughout the years. And if you look at what happens in aging, aging slows down the metabolism. So that's one thing that's happening. So getting older, your metabolism slows down. And then the body now starts, if you think about the body like a furnace, right? Your muscles and everything that goes on in your body is like a big, huge furnace, and you've got to put coal in to stoke it up. That's your metabolic rate. It starts to get cooler and cooler. That cooling down causes increased deposition of fat in the body. So the aging process plus the estrogen dropping makes you add more weight. So when you start to understand that it's not just me, okay, I'm getting older, but all these things that are happening in my body linked to loss of muscle mass, decrease in metabolic rate. There's something called sarcopenia. This is a word that I think in the next 10 years everybody will be talking about. There's a whole science about how our muscle decline actually affects our mortality. If your muscle mass gets lower and lower, you have an increased risk of death in a decade. And so when you look at that, that is a huge, huge thing. And that's where we go on and on about women trying to use weight training as a way to actually increase their mobility and lifespan. But also, it decreases the deposition of fat. Lifestyle, right? We get slower as we get older. And if you look at the world today, we walk from the lift down to the parking lot, 20 steps, you're in the car, next building, parking lot, up the lift. That's how we are. We just don't move as much. And it's not about being lazy. Our jobs, our careers, travel, all those things, it'd be great to go for a walk in the evening, but the traffic, security, all those things play in our minds. So we can't just suddenly say, right, start moving more, as most doctors say. So it's something that we really, really need to understand. Sleep. This is the most under-discussed topic. Our sleep is so essential, and I won't go into the actual physiology of what happens with your metabolic rate, but when we have increased hot flushes, when we've got insomnia, when we get palpitation in the middle of the night, all those things contribute to actually gaining weight. Now, I'll talk about two things, our behavior and our physiology. So when you've not slept well, you get tired, you get cranky, you're more stressed, you're more irritable. That increases your cortisol levels in the blood. Cortisol actually is a hormone in the body that increases fat deposition in the body. So that's one thing. The other thing is we get increased cravings when we're irritable, when we're tired, because we're looking for carbs. We're looking for things that will give us a quick hit, because carbs give us serotonin. And serotonin is a feel-good hormone. So when you actually get that serotonin, you're like, okay, my anxiety is down, palpitation is down, okay, I can calm down. So it's not about people not being disciplined. You're actually really responding to physiological things that are happening inside of you without realizing it. So if you're not slept and you wake up in the morning, you're going to look for carbs, and you're going to look for carbs throughout the day. So I just wanted to go through those things. Insulin resistance is the last thing, but I really won't go into it. But you have increased insulin resistance means you get more predisposed to developing type 2 diabetes. Now, those are the causes. I hope I've not gone too fast because I want to get to the most interesting part of this talk, which is Jackie here. But I just wanted to introduce a couple of things that science has proven that work. So everybody talks about keto diet, intermittent fasting. Those are the two biggest things right now. There's variations of them. All diets, every single diet is a calorie deficit diet. In other words, you're taking in less calories than, wait a minute, flip that around. You're taking in less calories, I'm going to say, they consume. You take in less calories than you actually burn. Sorry, flip the other way around. Sorry, you're burning more calories than you take in. So that's a calorie deficit diet. Now, why is this important? Calorie deficit essentially is the body saying, if you have 1,000 calories and you burn 800, you've got 200 extra. If you burn 1,200, you have 200 less. So you need to try and get the body into a deficit. That's what the keto diet is. It's a diet where you now switch off certain ways in which the body uses fuel, and you turn on other ways in which it uses fuel. If you look at the whole thing about ketosis, I'm not going to go into this, but it's basically carbohydrate restriction, ketosis, using fat as fuel. All those things are ways in which the body now will use more energy than it actually is taking in. Intermittent fasting. We all do this, or we have known of it, or we've tried it. Again, if you cut down one meal, take out one meal from your day, then you'll eat less calories. When you eat less calories, the chances are you'll burn more. The other thing that happens is you stop using glycogen, which is a store of glucose, and you start using fat as a source of energy. How it works, fasting periods, the feeding windows, the metabolic switch, hormonal changes, all those are ways in which the intermittent fasting works. And so why I'm talking about this is just setting the stage to the conversation we're going to have right now with Jackie, because they work. Every single diet works. And we want to hear about Jackie's story because it's really interesting because she's been on, we'll get to that, quite a few diets, and how has this impacted her in the perimenopause and the menopause, and what can we learn from some of the things that she's experienced. Finally, we're just going to talk about weight training for 2 seconds. Weight training is so essential. Building muscle mass is such an important thing. All these things that are mentioned now are free. So we're not here to tout particular things. We're going to talk about the weight loss pen, but all of these things are super effective. They're free, and they work. The papers, there's research. Now doctors actually tell people, and if you think about something like keto, it was used first in pediatric children, so a lot of evidence in them. The reason why a lot of people find diets hard is sticking to them. And so sticking to diets, especially, and anyone who's been on keto or any other diet will find that actually being able to keep up a diet for a prolonged period of time is very, very difficult. So we'll stop at this point. And there's another section which we'll talk about, but I'd like to introduce Jackie and invite her to come up. I think most of you know her. And we're going to have a conversation. And what I'll do is, we want to make this interactive and have people ask questions. If you've got a question in the middle, but by the way, I like the size of this group. It's nice, it's small, it's intimate. There are not too many people. And so if you've got any questions, please feel free to raise your hand, ask it, we'll repeat it, and we'll take it from there. Because we're not here to lecture, we're here to give an experience. And Jackie said something really interesting this morning, that when you tell stories, you change lives, especially personal stories. And I think this is what we want to do here. So the medical side is out, right? We'll talk about the weight loss pen, but I want to have a conversation with Jackie about her weight loss journey. So Jackie, take us back to the first time you went on a diet. Oh, sorry.
Let me just say that mic has an echo.
Should I take it up?
It's not really clear, and I'm sitting really close.
Okay.
So let me fix that mic.
Okay. So when can I just slap on my
Thank you. Sorry about that. I think you can all hear me? Excellent. So when you asked me the question, Don, and thank you for having me on board, and it's great to be here, and to those watching online, I hope you get something out of this. When he asks me to think back to when I went on my first diet, that's a lot of back thinking. Because if I recall correctly, I think I went on my first diet. My mother put me on a diet when I was a teenager. Because of her 3 daughters, the other 2 were reed thin. I was just carrying a little bit, just a little bit. But I was carrying more than any female in our family. And she thought, well, Jackie, there's something that you're eating that is keeping you bigger than us. Therefore, you're going to cut out this. You're going to have some boiled eggs for breakfast. You know, you're going to have carrots in your lunchbox, raw. To date, I do not like raw carrots. And, you know, you're going to do things to help you lose weight. So I remember very early on, that's how far back I began to think about me as a heavy person and having to do something to lose the weight.
Okay. So that's an interesting history because I actually went back to before. I know this talk was about the perimenopause and the menopause, but I went back to before because there's so many times in people's lives they've been on diets, right? And they'll say, yeah, I managed to shift the weight. What's the difference between then and now, going through the perimenopause and trying to be on a diet and trying to shift weight?
So when you asked, you know, how many diets I've been on, I have been on every diet in the planet, from the standard ones that are known and shared to the weird and uncomfortable and horrible ones. Cabbage soup for 3 days. Yeah, the emissions that you give out are enough to cause global warming. Not good. Then I've been, you know, South Beach. I did the Weight Watchers. Well, it was similar to Weight Watchers. It was called Way Less in South Africa. I have taken injections. I've taken, not injections, tablets that cause your body to
Tremble.
what is it called?
Tremble.
Yeah, so that you're generating energy to lose fat. I mean, I've done it all. And what was the difference then was I was very active. I was a swimmer, and so I was constantly swimming, and I was able to maintain and manage the weight with all these different things. But I hit my 40s, and I stopped activity. I stopped hiking. I used to walk a lot. When I was in my 30s, I even climbed Mount Kenya. I was active. And so people would say, you're just a regular Kenyan woman. You know, you carry some weight. But I wasn't massive. And then I always thought myself, you know, one of the benefits that I had was I always had, no matter how big I got, I always had a flat stomach. You know, so I had my hips, I had, you know, my sisters up here, but my stomach was flat. And I always laughed at people who would sit down and rest their hands on their tummy. One day in my 40s, I woke up and I found my hands resting on my tummy. And I didn't know when the tummy came, because I honestly could not remember that it was growing. It just felt like one day I had this huge pot belly. And no matter what I did, it didn't shift. And I did not equate it with perimenopause, because I thought I'd, you know, get into that season maybe in my late 50s into my 60s. But so I didn't see it coming, but I just knew I couldn't shift no matter what I did. I tried Atkins, I did dramatic Atkins, I'd lose a few kilos, and then I'd stop and it'd come back. I tried, you know, detox, I did the fasting, and it would shift, but it always came back. And the place it came back was this. So this began, you know, you could see the top of your toes, and then you can no longer see your toes standing. You know, your back starts to hurt because of the weight you're carrying in the front. And then I settled, and I realized, well, I'm going the way of all women. So just deal with it. As long as you're healthy, your blood pressure is normal, your sugars are normal, your cholesterol is normal, then that's just the way of life. And all my numbers were normal. And so I said, well, you're going into your 40s, you're less active, you've got that pot belly, you have a place to rest your hand, you know, life goes on. And then one day I walked into clinic, and I was escorting my mother and my sister who wanted a checkup, and I was just escorting them. But they were taking so long, I figured, let me go and get myself checked. And I went in, and they said, you're hypertensive, your blood pressure is too high. And they said, let's wait for half an hour, let's test it again. Let's wait for another half an hour, let's test it. It was not coming down. So they said, we need to wait for the consultant. So me, who took people in at about 11 in the morning, at 7 in the evening, I was still in the clinic waiting for the consultant. And for the first time, I actually had a medical condition that I felt was connected to my weight. And that was my wake-up call. And so that evening, I left the doctors with my first high blood pressure medication. And I kept thinking, I'm on meds for high blood pressure? And they told me, take it for a month, and then we'll come and review, and hopefully by then it'll have stabilized, your blood pressure should be normal, and we can take you off the drugs. I went back a month later, and it was actually worse. They added a second set of tablets, medication to it. So I was now on 2 medications for high blood pressure. And I really panicked because as I come from a family with medics, and they say the silent killer is high blood pressure for Africans. And you know, that thing of you just dropping and dying, I said was not my portion. So I figured out I need to do something. And at that time, my cousin sent me a link for a medical doctor in the US who was taking on people on an experimental journey of 12 weeks of coaching on the keto diet. And they said, write in and explain why, you know, you should be on this program so that you can get it, you know, free of charge. So I said, I'm from Africa. That in itself should have just told them, yes, you deserve to get it. Oh, but I am this, I have struggled. I mean, I gave such a sob story, and I was like, I think a day after the deadline. And the next day, the doctor wrote and said, I've read your story, and I'm touched by what you've gone through. Yes. And he took me on the program for 12 weeks. And it was monitored, there was a doctor in the group, and it was a coaching journey. And in 12 weeks, that was, and that year was, I think, was from March through to around June, I dropped 60 pounds, 30 kilos, over a 3-month window, just by doing keto and intermittent fasting. And I tell you, I felt good. I was not at my target, but from where I was, which I won't say right now, I'll say later, to where I reached, it was dramatic. I had to change my entire wardrobe. I began to wear shoes I couldn't wear before because my feet had become big. I was taken off the blood pressure medication because I was now on the lower side. And they said, if you stay with medication and what you're doing, it's actually dangerous. And then the doctor, when I went to see him, feeling very good, it began with the nurses. They were like, what are you doing? So they could tell my weight was down. But what was exciting for them was my blood pressure was down. And the doctor said this, I wish people could take us seriously when we say you got to change your lifestyle. The only negative thing that he never gave me was a plan. You see, he didn't give me a plan on how to do this. I found it by, you know, my cousin sending me this contact of someone in the US who was a metabolic doctor. And so at the end of that season, I kept the weight off. We went off, the group stopped, we weren't meeting, we weren't talking, we weren't sharing our stories. But 6 months later, I was still losing weight. Then I hit a wall at the end of that year, around October. And the wall was not to do with food, because I really was off carbohydrates, sugars, and all that. The wall was, a long-term friendship came to an end. And it jolted me. And I was looking for comfort, what you just said. And what was the most comfortable thing that I could find was a biscuit or a mandazi, and I'd say, I'll just take 2 bites. But the 2 bites went to the full biscuit, and then it went to bread, and then the chapati was eaten. And before I knew it, at the end of that year, I was back to eating in my old way. And then I had this thing in my head, like, I've done so well that it's not affecting me. I'm not putting on weight because my hand was no longer resting here. So I was like, yeah, I'm not putting on weight. But 3 months down the road, I realized the clothes that I had bought, the new ones, were not fitting. So I was now going to say, where did you throw those old clothes that you were wearing before? Because I was now running out of clothes to wear. And the weight began to come back. And by the beginning of this year, and now that whole journey was in 2021, 2022. The beginning of 2023, I was back to the same weight that I was when I found that I had the high blood pressure. And when I took my pressure, they were saying, you're not hypertensive, but we don't like your numbers. So I told myself, how did I get back to this place?
So what I'm going to do is just stop you there for a second. I did not interrupt on purpose because I just want you to get the whole story. Three things as you were talking that for me stood out. Doctors will only recognize weight gain when there's something wrong with you in terms of numbers. Other than that, it's sort yourself out. And this is why we're doing this, because you can't, if you ask most people, what's concerns you more, your blood pressure or your weight? Majority will say my weight. Oh yes, my blood pressure, of course, but that they can't feel it, it's not tangible, it's not something you can actually feel. And it's quite sad that when you went the second time, they're like, okay, your blood pressure's fine, we're not happy about your numbers, but they're not concerned about the weight. And that's why we're here today, because the weight, and the second thing you said that was really interesting is what I'm about to get into, is you said something so powerful, and we need to talk a lot more about this. There's a lot of political correctness these days if someone says losing weight makes me feel good, it's like, oh, you're just superficial. But there's so much tied to who we are, our personalities, our sense of identity. It's linked to our weight. And not because of anything else, but I've listened to some podcasts where they actually talk about your inner person, your being, and your ability to have energy. You have most energy where you are your ideal weight. Now, all of us have internally a weight that God made us to be. That's your ideal weight. That's where you have the most energy. That's where you're most comfortable. And some of us have never been there. Some of us have hit it, felt fantastic, 2-3 months, and then it's gone. And you've tasted that. You've tasted that experience of, I felt good. And we need to destigmatize this thing of feeling good is bad. Like, no, let's, what do Catholics call it? Flagellate our backs, feel pain, and that's a true human experience. No, feeling good is a really powerful emotion. And supporting people to help them get to a place where they feel that they feel good, I think is really important. So the whole thing when you said feeling good, you've just felt good, right? I've got a question. How did you feel when you put all the weight back on?
Wow. The first thing I did was I blamed myself. And I asked myself, how did you allow yourself to get back here? Because when I'd lost all that weight and I really felt good and I was no more knee pain, I could move easy. Getting up and standing wasn't a matter of holding every piece of furniture to stand up. My knees weren't aching. Going up and down stairs was not a problem. And I asked myself, you felt that good, you felt that healthy, but you allowed yourself to slip back and get back into weight. And so I felt angry, I felt disappointed in myself. I actually also felt very embarrassed because everybody knew I was on a keto diet and they were all saying, you're doing so well, you're doing so good. And then now you're back in the office space and lunchtime people are ordering. And they say, oh, no, Jackie's fine. They say, no, niletea chips, please, tapadali. Niletea chips, bring me some chips. And they're saying, you're not on keto? I said, today is just a special day. Let me just, So, trying to explain yourself to people and just say, why have you gone back? And so that was one. So I was embarrassed as well. But then I was depressed because I felt that I had lost the window that I had to do it right. And I'd had all the help. I had this metabolic doctor. We had this group from around. We were 12 of us from all across the world in that group. And we were all doing wonderfully. And now I don't have that help. I've lost that opportunity because right now if you go back to him, he's charging quite a penny to be coached through the weight journey again. And I can't use the second story of I'm an African. I can't. Maybe I should use I'm a pastor. So I was a bit depressed, and I really felt, now I'm much older, I'm slap bang in my early 50s now, and I'm thinking, this thing is my portion. until, till the end. Because I sat there and I said, I really don't know how I'm going to get rid of this again. And I think what happened was at the end of last year, I'd gotten to a point where I said, I can't do this anymore. I've done every diet. I've tried everything. You should go. I love my books. And if you come to a segment of my library, about 3 shelves deep is every diet book that I could ever think of having, from the Christian ones to Dr. Phil's to T.D. Jakes's to the French diet. I have it all. And I looked at that shelf and I said, I can't do this again. I can't start restricting here and there and everywhere. And then I tried to get back on keto, and the carbohydrate had my name on it, and he kept saying, just one bite, one bite. So it was very hard. I was just in a very depressive state, and I just knew this is it. I'm just gonna have to just learn how to live like this, wear kaftans and flat shoes.
So that's a really interesting thing, because that's what I was going to ask you next. At any point, did you think any of those causes of weight gain, did you think my sleep, my stress, hormonal changes, lack of movement, do you think it was that, or did you think it was just you failing?
Me failing. Because number one, I sleep. I have no issues with sleep. Never had. Number two, I rarely stress. I am a happy child. Always have been. My peeps are here, they'll tell you, me, I'm a happy person. So I could not tick it off a list. So it just had to boil down to me. It's your fault. You couldn't hold your emotions together. You allowed an emotional state to take over you. And so that's it. I actually did not really put it down even to the estrogen, like you said. A little bit of stress, yes, the cortisol around the midsection, but it could not explain the way I ate, my eating habits, and my desire to just eat carbohydrates and feel good all the time. It just couldn't explain that. So I just said, this is me, this is your life. Just be a bit polite when you're in public, when you're eating those things. Take a little bit of potato, just maybe 1 or 2, and look polite so that people don't say, this girl, Yani, doesn't know how to sort out. And I said, manage myself from that perspective.
Yeah. And so that's one of the things that we want to talk about, the whole self-esteem and self-loathing that comes from weight gain and failure, feeling that you've not been able to do what's true to you. Part of this whole talk is about us discussing it in forums. My final question before we go into what you're doing right now is, why didn't you just give up totally? Because now you're in another thing, so we'll talk about that. But
I did give up. I did give up, and I just said, my sister was here somewhere, I don't know where she is, and we just decided bread is fine to us to have in the house. We those luos that warus were made for, so we have warus in the house all the time, preferably in chips form. We just gave up, and we just began to eat anyhow. Then, I'm a pastor, I work in a church, and January was coming. And if you live in Kenya, you know that January is when we all go on 21-day fasts. So I said, thank you, Jesus. The fast is coming. So this fast, yes, Lord, you know my heart is fine. This one is for my body. This one I have to lose weight. And so as I went on the fast, someone told me about a detox program. And usually when we do a fast in church, it's a 1 meal a day. So you eat an evening meal, 1 meal, but the whole day you take nothing. But this person told me this is a detox program that will help just fix a lot of the things that are going on in your body. And that meant there was no food to be eaten. It was just liquid. And so I said, wonderful. For 21 days, I shall be taking liquids. And it was, what do you call these things? Fruits and vegetables that were blended. And it was raw. And there was raw potato, not parsnips. No, the white carrot, the Korean daikon or something like that. It had beetroot, it had garlic, it had lemon. Wonderful stuff on their own. Together it was mighty. And at the beginning it was fine. I actually was enjoying because I think my body just needed to rest. But after a while, I struggled, and I didn't even finish the 21 days of that. I ended up just drinking water, lemon water, because everybody would say, what are you drinking? Because I'd open my flask, and the whiff that came out of there was enough to cause guys to faint. And it was the raw the raw potato. Blended potato juice is, but the thing is, the weight was coming off. But I hit again another wall. I said, I can't drink this stuff anymore. And so I just shifted to water for the remainder of the days. And of course, when the 21 days was over, I told myself, great, now slip into keto. You've done keto before, and IF. And I said, I will get into keto. And I think I did keto and IF for 3 days. And it went right back.
Was that the point we had the conversation?
That's when we had the conversation. And I told my brother, it's all right. I am healthy. Blood pressure is normal. It is okay. I just live like this because everything I've done, including this, is not shifting the weight. And then you came and said, okay, well, there is a solution. And I want you to take it seriously. And I think you told it to me on day 18. So I was ready to jump into it. And he said, no, finish that fast and those things you're drinking. And then we can talk.
Sounds rancid.
It was special. It was special, yeah.
So the thing about this is we've had a lot of conversations with Jackie through the years. We always talk about it. Diets are hard because they take away the one thing that we derive pleasure from. And you can do it for a period of time. So you can really say, I'm focused, I'm going to get to this weight, and you stand the scales. But maintaining them over a period of time is so hard because life gets in the way. We get stressed. Things happen. You know, you go on holiday and you say, I'll start 2 weeks after, and then it's a month, and so that's, as a doctor, I used to run clinics in the NHS, and I heard stories from all types of people. You'd have a Pakistani man who take out his picture of his suit when he came to England 25 years ago. Very neat three-piece suit. Now he's put on so much weight, he's like, that's who I am. And he's talking about 25 years ago. You'll have a white middle-class lady who's had 2 children and said, I can't shift the 20 kilos. All different people with the same story. And that's what fascinated me about how can I help people in different ways. And throughout the years, I've always been there, cheerleader, trying to say, how do we fix this? And it's not because of lack of will. Everybody has the will. Everybody wants to lose the weight. It's just so difficult to maintain it in the world we live in now, right? Everything is super fast. And that's, you're living in the middle of nowhere. It's hard to not be able to eat carbs or eat before breakfast, or if you've got a work to do that finishes at 9 o'clock at night, you've broken your intermittent fasting window. All these things just come into your mind. And I first heard about, I'll talk about what I mentioned to her, the weight loss band, the different brands out there. I heard about it, and the one thing that people who'd come to my clinic would say or feel is if they'd lost weight, that day, fantastic day. It doesn't matter what happens. If they've gained even a pound, it's a rubbish day. And that consumes you the whole day. So you've just got these negative thoughts and negative feelings, the guilt after a weekend. And I was like, that's not life. You can't, I believe in living life to its fullest. And if it's only determined by that scale, and it could be a kilo, a pound, just that, then there's got to be a better way of living life. And so I came across this weight loss pen, and I'll tell you why I came across it, because I was looking for a solution that people would find that actually is not hard. And I was like, okay, we're in the 21st century. Not everything has to be hard, right? You don't have to be going through, tough time. There's a whole movement that's anti it because they're like, no, you can't take the easy way out. Let's go for the hard way. Life is hard. There's so much other stuff going on, right? If you can get rid of that one hard thing, then so be it. So it's a pen that I'll talk about. I've got a few slides because I want to just explain what it is, not sell it. I'm just explaining that there is something that takes the obsession around food away. And I'll give you my personal story. I was probably twice this size in university. And there's photographic evidence. So I went to university, Cape Town, and you go to university and you're like, hey, right.
Beer and meat.
No, in Cape Town, it was stairs. We had stairs down the road. Like, you walk down from the halls of residence, bang, stairs, and then what's the other one called? The other chain? The Nando's and the burger one that's on Mombasa Road. That was only on Sundays, the expensive one for a student. But basically, it was just junk food. And junk food is junk
Spur.
food. Spur.
Spur.
And junk food all the time. And, then you're studying, and it's junk food, you're studying, it's junk food. And I just packed on the pounds, as most people do. And I think it was my third year. And then you keep saying, oh, I'll start. My third year, I started to have back pain. I was like, okay. Clearly my body's telling me something. Now, I never used to run, never used to do anything, but at that time you're going to your clinical years as well. So you've done your preclinical, clinical years on the wards. And I said, okay, now this is when the stress of exams are now starting to pile in. I was like, for some reason, I never used to run. I was the guy in high school who got the cross-country exemption. So everyone else takes off. Seriously, I never did cross-country. And people were like, you've never done, I never did. I did one, and I was, and I was the guy who got onto the bus, and they're like, what's wrong? Asthma. And I think I was having, it was dusty, Kikuyu, it's very dusty in January, February. And that was it. I never did it. So I never run my whole life. We're not a family of runners. And just to kill the stress, I said, I'm going to start running, my third year. And I started running, and I actually got into exercise because of how it balanced out stress. Losing the weight was fantastic. And I realized at that point that I was a shadow of who I was my first 3 years because I did nothing. We just used to go out, come home, go to parties, and you don't really experience life. So I understood when you lose weight, you actually feel so much more vibrant. And so I've taken that like my whole life. I exercise like every single day, apart from weekends with the kids. But and it's for two things. It's the energy. It gives me energy, but it's also the mental, the physical, and everything. So I understand that if I can help people get to a place where they feel energized and they feel truly that they are the best version of them, that's as important as helping somebody who's got pneumonia or somebody who's got heart disease. And that's my passion and my vision. And that's why I went and looked for this pen, because I was like, it's not easy. So it came out, it was the history of, I'll just put it up here. Okay, sorry, there's just extra strap. So the history of this
Thanks,
pen
Amina.
is that I used to talk to patients, and they would say this: if you could give me a tablet, doctor, give me an injection to lose weight, I will lose that weight, right? Because I've tried everything, and I know, and I'm a single mother, I've got 3 kids, I work shifts, I'm a nurse, this is London, I've got no time, this could be a Nigerian woman sitting in front of me, and she'll come in sometimes really happy and excited because she knows she's lost weight, other times really down because she knows she hasn't. And her emotional mood was just based on her weight. And people would say this. And in 2017, I was like, it's here. The thing that everyone is talking about is finally here. But I was an early adopter, and when I told people about it, they were like, okay, ooh, but this thing, because no one's talking about it, what am I injecting? What's going into my body? Am I going to have serious problems later on? And I explained, look, this is from endocrinologists. This was designed by consultant endocrinologists who, there are certain professions or parts of medicine that are considered unglamorous, right? People go for the cardiology, the gynecology, the thing where people make a lot of money. Endocrinology is a very humble profession because it's very complicated. They came up with this thing that was helping diabetics not progress from type 2 to type 1. I'll explain why. If someone's got type 2 diabetes, in other words, it's late onset, they have got insulin resistance. If the insulin and glucose can't be controlled, doctors sometimes would say, right, you need to go on insulin. That's almost like a sentence, because just before you become insulin dependent, your weight actually starts to drop over months and years. So you think everything is fine. Bang, you put an insulin, your weight spikes, because suddenly all that glucose now is going into your system. Because before that, it's in your bloodstream, where it's poisonous. So people hate going onto insulin. So they were like, how can we stabilize blood sugar? And so they started giving these non-insulin dependent diabetics semaglutide, which is the medication that you find in the pens, to stabilize them. And they were like, oh, that's fantastic. The insulin is stable. That's really great. And the patients are walking in, super excited. They're like, guess what? I'm losing weight. And they're like, oh, that's good. Well done. but I'm not doing anything. I just don't feel like I need to eat. I don't feel like I need to eat all the food. And they're like, oh, okay. And they started to join the dots. And this is like way back in 2005. And they found that, I'll come to this slide in a second, but they found that this medication was stabilizing blood sugar and really making a big impact on them. Why we're talking about this now and this talk is all my clients, the people I talk to, you know, they've conquered industry, they've conquered corporate ladder, they've conquered so many things in their lives. And this is the one thing that they just feel I cannot conquer. This is the one thing that's letting me down. Like how? You know, and it's not just about willpower. You know, men go and say, oh, just willpower, be consistent, just stick to the diet. You know, men, it's a different story. And that's why they don't put on the weight like, you know, women do. Apart from, you know, Nyamashoma and the beers. And so we're now trying to see how we can empower women to understand, right? Now, I don't know, how many people heard about this controversy last year? Oprah. You know in the back? So Oprah came and made a statement in a, sorry? Yeah, so Oprah made a statement. The controversy was this. She was being interviewed, because she's a shareholder in Weight Watchers. Sorry? She had to step down, yeah. Yeah, that's the Oprah effect. So basically she told people, no, what did she say? I like to do it the natural way or something. She made a statement in the panel. And that was almost like knocking Ozempic or the weight loss pens. And then in December, I'm not sure exactly how it happened, it came out that she's been on the weight loss pen, right? And she said, fine, guys, and those backlash saying, oh, how could you lie to us? And I was like, guys, okay, it's Oprah, but you can't have your whole life around Oprah. But the fact that she said, I was just tired of the yo-yos. She's a billionaire. To become a billionaire, you need grit, determination, focus, consistency, discipline, every single thing, as a black woman in America. So she's got drive. But that thing called her weight was still pulling her down. And that's why this conversation for me is such an important one, because now we're not telling you you're weak-minded, it's just the physiology that happens, but now what can you do? What can you do? What options are there that are not the Warus and all that, you know, Jackie's story is amazing because she's tried them all, and they're hard and they work, but then you can't, you know, consistently stay on them. So that's the history of it. So this is not a new medication, right? So that fancy term, GLP-1, right? I'll explain what a GLP-1 agonist is. This is the power behind these injections. If you think about your body having lots of locks, right? And you've got certain keys that open certain locks. The way this hormone works is when you look at your appetite and how you feel and with food, it goes in and it locks certain doors and decreases your wanting or ability to want to eat more food. It's an intricate thing. It's about your brain and your stomach. If you think about eating, when you first taste food, let's say you're starving, properly starving, you first taste food, guess what happens? You're like, after 2 bites, that food has gone nowhere near your bloodstream. It's still in your stomach. It's still in a muscular bag. But your body has told your brain, and you have certain hormones released, food is here. That whole process is something that's natural, okay? When you look at the GLP-1 agonists, they mimic that process. So you don't have to wait necessarily to be full for you to actually start to feel full. Now, some people will have different periods of how long they'll take to get full. Some people have a few bites, and in 4 or 5 minutes, they start to feel a bit full. Some people, it's 20 minutes. So it's not about being greedy. It's just that hormone does not get released, so you're not full. So you have that first helping and that second helping, and you're like, then you're full. So that is where you have individual variation. This stabilizes that. It makes you know your body responds because it knows there's no big lag time between being full and not being full. And that's why I loved it, right? Because I was like, number one, this is the most common version of it. It's called Wegovy, right? And it is, it's been one of the biggest things. Everybody's said Oprah, 50 Cent, the rapper, so many celebrities because they also know that they live hectic lives and they can't really, balance it. So how does it work? There's three main things that happen when you're hungry, and we don't think about them. We've never really thought about them. But when you start eating, that period between when you start eating and when you get full is variable, depending on two things: what food you're eating and the state of mind you're in. We all know you've eaten something and you're like, I didn't taste it. Because either you're preoccupied or you're online or you're watching something and we all know in movies, you just eat popcorn, you're not tasting it, you literally just eat popcorn. The first handful is the best. After that, it's mindless. And the type of food. So when you look at the type of food, you may be eating something that's heavy so you'll get fuller faster. So what it does is it makes you get or feel fuller faster. So within 2-3 minutes, right, you'll have a bite of a samosa, you'll have half a chapati, and bang, you start to feel full. Whereas normally if you're talking to people, you just be eating without realizing it. So that's the first thing. So it takes away that mindless eating. And we all do it. I do it sometimes at lunchtime, right? Let me just see what's on news. I'm eating my sandwich, and I'm not really tasting it. So it actually stops you from doing mindless eating. The second thing is you feel fuller for longer. We are 3, 6, 4 meals a day. So let's say you had breakfast at 8 o'clock. You won't necessarily be hungry, starving. By 12, it could be 1, 2 o'clock, and you realize, so your satiety, that's the whole ability to feel full, last longer. And the last thing, cravings. Cravings are real because, as I said, they're the body's response to stress. Cravings are not just, you're weak. When you've got cortisol in your body or you're in a stressful situation, it's fight or flight. The body wants to refuel. That refueling is a craving. You'll have the crisps, the peanuts, the biscuits that's right in front of you, and you'll eat it. And that's why you're not going to look for vegetables, because the body knows vegetables are not going to give me that serotonin. So it does those three things, meaning it balances that first bit of how you feel full. It regulates your meal times. It knocks you into almost a calorie deficit because you don't need to be eating at a particular time. And the last thing, it deals with how stress affects us. So this is just the cascade of how it works. I'll give you a little demonstration of what it looks like. But now, Jackie, tell us about your experience on it.
Excuse me. I think it was at the end of January when you made mention and you said you had a pen from your previous trip that was at home, I think 2 pens of Saxenda. And you said, try this. Go on this and see if it's going to make any difference. But let the 21 days pass and then you start. So I didn't begin it until a couple of days beyond the 21 days, and I noticed my eating was quickly going back to the old eating. The chapati was right there, the chips, the potatoes, the bread, and I had no willpower or any thought of stopping that. I said, let me just eat it. Come on, nikubaya. I just eat. But I knew the pen was there, and so I said, okay, there's a start date. Just start. And so I took it. Number one, I'm not very good with anything that's injectable. I can't even have my eyebrows done plucked. I don't like pain. This thing was so small I could barely feel it. So that was a big plus. Because I think Saxenda, as opposed to the other two, is a daily injection. So every day you're injecting yourself, and you really don't feel it. And so I began to, I think I read the article and I watched the whole issue about Oprah. And the one thing that I said was, it is okay to get help in the easy way out. Because let me be honest, there are some other methods of weight loss that if I had the finances like Oprah, I'd have done them. Because you have the money to do it, but I didn't. But here was an option, and bless my brother, he told me, you don't have to pay for the first one, just give it a shot. So I said, it's good to have a brother who's a doctor. So I wasn't even paying for it, so I had everything to gain from giving it a shot. And what it did for me is it changed that almost desperate situation of there's no other option anymore, Jack, you've tried it all, to the point of this thing works. And how I noticed it began to work was I was trying now to say, for it to work best, I'll put all the methods that I know together. We shall intermittent fast, we shall keto, plus the injection in the morning. By tomorrow, I'll have lost 75 kilos. And it's all done. I said, do it all once. But I realized I didn't have, I'd come and, there's bread in the house and I'd still take bread. And then I remember when I talked to you about it, and you said something very interesting. You said, Jackie, for you, I would suggest stop keto and stop intermittent fasting. Eat normal. And I'm thinking, why are you stopping progress? And he explained it. Because I was so dependent on dieting, he needed to remove the whole dieting thing off the table and to show that this will work without you dieting. Now me, who doesn't take breakfast unless it is eggs only, was now saying, like, if I confess this morning for breakfast, I had last night's burger. Because I couldn't eat it last night, I was full. I carried it to work and I had it for breakfast. That was a no-no for dieting. It's got bread, it's in the morning, it's just the wrong thing. But what he had to change my thinking around dieting, and that's why he told me don't do. So it's not that you can't do the two together with a pen, excuse me, but he had to change my mindset. And so yes, I began to use it, and I've been on it for, my weight, by the way, had gone back I'll say the number now so that you can understand how crazy it was. It had gone back up to 140 kilos. So that's where I was at the beginning of this year. Now I'm mid-height, and so I distribute it well around the whole body, but I was carrying 140 kilos at the beginning of this year. I dropped 6 kilos while I was doing the fast and the drink. I dropped 6 kilos, and I put it all back to 138 when I began the pen. That was 3 weeks ago, and with no dieting, no specific, I'm now 130 kilos. So I've lost 8 kilos in the past without being on any discernible diet. No intermittent fasting.
We had burgers last night.
We had burger last night, and then I had the one I couldn't eat. I had it this morning, and right now I have no desire to eat. I'm hearing plates clanking, and people are eating, and I have no desire to eat. And when I do, I will eat something. But I know now I have help to get me to where I need to get without the mental agony of, you can't eat that, you shouldn't eat at this time. And it's not that I want to go overboard either, because I really can't. It's like Don says, you take 2-3 bites, already you feel full. And if you push it beyond that, you actually can get physically sick. So there's a point where I just cannot eat beyond. And because of that, the weight is just effortlessly coming off. I now feel like if I'm not careful, you have to tell me what to do to make sure that the skin is tight and I don't have flabby skin, because the weight is coming out. This is the fastest it's come off, and this is only not than 3 months, it's just 3 weeks.
3 weeks.
And then tomorrow, I think I finally finished the Saxenda, so tomorrow I shift and I start my Wegovy journey tomorrow. So I'm excited to see how that will, because I hear that's even faster, right? Yes?
Depending on how much you take.
Yeah?
So that's really great. These are statements that people have made, right? That, I remember there's a nurse, a midwife, because they have really crazy shifts, that she said, I can eat a meal, before I just eat like everything at a mealtime. Now she's just like, I can't finish, and suddenly I'm eating a meal that I would have eaten at night, half of it at night and half at breakfast, and thinking, I would have consumed all this in once and then my breakfast. So people space out meals. Everyone's got their own way of how they react to it. We're going to talk about side effects, because everyone's going to think, oh, what about side effects? But essentially, these are anecdotal statements, and very powerful for me as a clinician, because we focus on the results, but we don't focus on the experience. And for me, this is the experience of taking the thinking away, the obsession away from eating and from food. And I personally, witnessed Jackie. And I want to stress, this is not a pitch. This is not a pitch at all. This is just one of those things that I said to give the options. But I was talking to Jackie, and twice this week, I've seen her just leave food. She gives the, it says, pack this for tomorrow lunch.
Because we are Africans. Your mother told
Finish.
you finished on your plate. Because there are starving children in Turkana who don't have food. I've never been able to leave food on my plate. Never.
And that's the thing. So, side effects. So, these side effects are linked to the way it actually works. And if you think about eating, we all have different things that happen when we eat. For example, nausea. If we've eaten too much, bang, you can get nauseous. Constipation, diarrhea, it depends on how your body controls the fluid balance. So there's an element of fluid balance. You get a bit of a loose stool, it could be because you're losing a little bit of fluid, and that's why one of the things we tell people is to eat. The pancreatitis is because the pancreas creates glucagon and insulin, right? And so that shift, if it's in some very rare cases. Now, when you look at Wegovy and all these medications, I was speaking to the rep, I don't know, he's just talking about it because he's a rep, but he said, this is the fastest uptake of any medication apart from the COVID vaccines, of anything that's ever been launched. Their share price is through the roof simply because loads of people are taking it, loads of ages. So you rarely have a medication that hits so many different demographics. Let's say it's anti-malarials, people who are in Africa. If it's painkillers, of a certain age, you have different people taking it. But here, all ethnicities, all age groups taking it. So we're seeing more side effect profiles coming out like pancreatitis, but it's very rare. So if you think about the complications that will happen with obesity, heart disease, lung disease, joints, stress, depression, compared to the very rare, and someone's going to tell you, oh, you get pancreatitis, it's a really, really rare thing. And then if you've got gallbladder problems, again, because the gallbladder has got bile, which is used in digestion, that can cause a bit of irritation if you do have a gallbladder problem. There's one very rare side effect that everyone goes, oh, what about that? And if any of you heard about it, they talk about, is a study done in mice, never reproduced in human beings. If you have a history of thyroid cancer, which is extremely rare in your family, they say be cautious, but there's no actual evidence in human studies, and millions of people are on this medication. So we just wanted this to be a conversation. Now I'll tell you why we did this. What Jackie's experience with a doctor was powerful. I've never seen Jackie lose weight, be motivated as much as she did. It was the fact that she had a group, a community of people who every week, or every 2 weeks?
Yeah, we met every week.
Every week,
Yeah.
they met. And she picked up so much. It wasn't just a chatter group of people posting their pictures and saying, hey, look, I've lost this, and I did 10 Ks this weekend. It was a productive group, it was a support group, but it was using science and to help people together. And the genesis of this is for us, and we've had a lot of conversations with Susan here, how can we create almost like a membership lounge for women to come together and say, look, we want to exchange ideas, and it's not about the pen, it's about if someone's like, you know what, I want to start with keto, I've never done keto, but I want to join in, and I want to have like-minded people, encouraging people, exchanging, if somebody was to ask a scientific question, I'll be there to give an answer. Side effects, I'm on this medication, can I do it? If I want to do intermittent fasting, because that works, but I've always fallen down, but I want the support structure. We want to create that here at Infinity Spa, Medi Spa soon to be, where we can actually come and say, okay, there's that element, people talk together, but then there's the element of, what are the other services? This partnership is amazing because I've always wanted to have the physiotherapists, the gym, all the stuff that people need, because I know the value of exercise, that can help encourage people to lose weight and keep it off. Now, I had an operation a couple of years ago, and again, I was not moving. When you don't move, guess what happens? You make bad food decisions. And so I was sitting in bed, I couldn't run anymore because of my leg, and I picked up weight. And then after the operation, I couldn't exercise at all. And I was like, movement is not just about burning calories, it's how it makes you feel. And because I've done this for so many years, it was hard. I'm 49 now. It was the hardest it's ever been for me to shift kilos because, again, I'm older, stress, 3 kids, school, work, practice, and I took a much longer time because I thought, have the operation, it's done. They said you'd be back at work in 6 weeks, back at the gym, 3 months. I hit my pre-operation weight after 18 months. 18 months. I was shedding it, but I'm now my pre-op weight, but it took me 18 months. So I know how hard it is to lose weight. And I'm motivated. I get up early and I work out. And it was still hard. It was hard. So it's doubly hard for anyone here, and I totally empathize, to lose weight when your body's fighting you, right? For me, it was just about getting back to the routine. When you've got the hormones, you've got the stress, the night, the hot flushes, all that. So we want to send out information, and we'll tell you about how we want to create this community. For questions, we want Q&As now, if anyone has them, so that we can connect just going back to the services. One of the things about exercise and feeling good is if you have somebody to guide you through it and you get injuries, you need a professional to help you. A lot of the times, the therapists that come to your houses, they're like, go strong. They push people too hard. And then you get an injury, and then you just stop doing it. So we want to create a place where we know it's tailor-made. We don't just say, go out there. The physio, the gym instructors will know about how do you pace somebody who's going through the perimenopause in terms of a gym membership. The spas, the saunas, the steam rooms, all those things when you have the aches and your pains and your injuries, those are really essential for you to get back on the horse again. Because me getting back, trying to get fit again, I picked up so many injuries, I was shocked. Shoulder still has a bit of an injury, my back, my left ankle, you pick them up quickly and then you give up. So it's a holistic way of looking at it, looking at diet, nutrition, all of that together. And we'll be giving you more information on it. But I think now we are at 8 o'clock. Thank you so much for your attention. It's really been brilliant. And if you've got any questions, we will be very happy to answer them. Yes?
What Jackie was on before. The pen you were on before, it's just the brand difference, and then you're going on to Wegovy. I wanted to understand.
I'll tell you what it is. So,
Yeah.
there's different base names. So there's semaglutide, liraglutide, but essentially, the once-a-day pen just has half-life of 24 hours. So after 24 hours, it's out of your system. The once-a-week pen that you take lasts for the full week. It is, I think, a very interesting thing that the once-a-week one came out, because I didn't think they would bring it out, because I was thinking, how can you suppress your appetite for that amount of time? It works very well. And it starts with different doses. For some people, I'll tell you, for my patients, the average milligram dose is 1 milligram. Some people start at 0.5, some people start at 0.25. In the US, they go crazy. They go to 2.4 milligrams, so that's hardcore. And that's when people just lose a huge amount of weight. So the different brands, but it's the same company. Why I trust these companies, they've been making insulin for decades. So they know diabetes, they know the body. That's all they specialize in. It's called Novo Nordisk. And they decided we're going to make this our mission to try and figure this thing out. I think they obviously just stumbled across this and said, that's it. So we're just shifting because the Saxenda has pretty much left the market because nobody wants to inject twice. There was such a demand for it. The rep told me he gave this analogy and he said, it's like filling trying to fill a bathroom with a straw and the plug is open, right? The demand is just so high. You'll never fill that bath with the plug that's open. So they're going to come up, there probably will be a once a month one at some point. And the estimates are 10%, I don't know how true this is, 10% of individuals in the next 10 years will be a form of an appetite suppressant. Because all the diseases of lifestyle, which have caught up with us, the cost is just through the roof. No country, government, insurance scheme can handle what's going to come in the next decade. Silence. Yeah.
How long have these been in the market? And we can't see into the future.
Yeah.
Could there be unintended consequences down the road that we don't know about?
I can never say never in medicine. But what happens now Okay, so how long they've been in the market? I first got my training in 2017, so that's what, 7 years ago. They became big post-COVID because celebrities started using them. Then they became the big cry that, oh, diabetic patients are not able to get them, and so again hit the press. The research, the way it actually works itself has been very well documented for quite a long time, and the pathways that actually it goes through. So they're not seeing anything untoward. Now, if you think about the medication for anti-sickness that women got in pregnancy in the 70s, what's it called? Yeah, I've just forgotten. That was rushed to the market. There's a medication that caused limb deformities in children that women were given, thalidomide, that's it. So there's been a lot of oversight. FDA has gone through all the studies and they've done all the trials. So it's been on trial since 2005, so we're nearly a decade down the road. The second thing is, when the NHS were doing their approvals of it, NHS is so old school, typical, very British, straight-laced. And they run tons of trials, they did lots of papers, they looked at all the side effect profiles. So far, nothing has been found with the number of people that are on it. Now, we'll talk about the fake ones that are on the market. That's where the danger is. There's a lady who went into a coma from using a pen for weight loss. It was counterfeit. It was insulin. She was injecting insulin into her body. And so her blood sugar was just dropping, and she was feeling tired, and she was on holiday, and she collapsed. And they just could not get her blood glucose up. They were just pumping glucose into her. And when they took the pen, she didn't tell her family, and they were like, oh, how would this happen? Is she diabetic? No. And when she came to, she said, I've been in the pen. They took the pen, they analyzed it was insulin. So the moral is, with anything like this, there's gonna be a lot of fake things on the market. There's gonna be things that if you buy, you could potentially cause a lot of damage. The side effect profiles, one of the doctors was saying, will come from people who thought they were buying something real, and it wasn't. Yeah. That's a really good question. And this is from Harvard. They pretty much have said, you can take it for life if you want to. They've given it that green light. To recognizing the signals from the injection, it's kind of gone lazy. So now it stops really recognizing its own signals. So you need to just make sure, hey, this is when you're full. This is, lunch doesn't have to be at 11:45. It can be at 1 o'clock, which it had. So you're kind of retraining your body for another period of time. It's the same way when there's this whole thing that happens when people go on summer holidays. You're your fittest the day before your holiday. Go on holiday, you rubbish it, and it starts to go up for the next year until your next summer holiday. So we will revert back to our habits, and that's the reality of it. I say, stay on the plateau, wean down, so half the dose, and use it as a rescue. So if you found you've gone 10% above your weight, so let's say you lost 10 kgs, and you're looking, so 10 kgs, and let's say you put on 2 kgs. So an alarm bell should go, that if it goes to 3, you're putting the weight back on, right? So either check your diet, you can go into intermittent fasting, you can go on to keto just to stabilize things. But if you find, okay, it's the stress, you can use it for short bursts. So you could use it, for example, some of my clients use it on weekends. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, because that's when the chaos is with eating. Monday, they go off it, because there's routine. So they'll say, I just use it, like that's the one, if you're using the pen that's daily. For the weekly pen, it's more complicated than that, but use it for short bursts. And I experienced this, if you stop going to the gym or anything, you will put on weight again if you not change your eating habits. So it's about auditing yourself and trying to say, right, and then using it as a rescue pen when you find that you're going above. Then you don't hit that weight again. There will be, hopefully, there will be financial implications to this, but I think the price will come down dramatically when they're building the biggest plant in Europe to manufacture this, because the demand is so high, because they never had to do it. So there will be more access to it, and we'll get a lot more information. But you don't have to stay in it for life.
And I think one of the things that helped me when I was with Dr. Ellie was building the support system. Because if I can only imagine if I'd stayed with that support group a lot longer, and when I hit that wall, I would have had a place to go back and say, guys, this is how I'm feeling. I'm feeling really crappy about this friendship, and I'm back to eating carbs. And they would have been able to manage my transition at that time to be able to go back to saying, look, it's an emotional response, deal with it on that level, but don't let it sabotage what you're working on. But I didn't have that support system. It had been gone for the past 3 months beyond that. So I think if we build that support system as well, that you got people you're talking with about this journey, then it would be something that we could help in those points of transition. Because I think one of the things that is going to be critical about anything like this, and what Oprah finally did, was let me speak for me. We can't attach secrecy and guilt, like, oh, I'm doing shortcut to this, because it's about my life, and about my health. And so if you're in a space where you can freely talk about, look, and you can carry it around like your badge, and saying, this thing is helping my life, people, and you're not ashamed to say that I've sought help. If you're in a community that can talk freely about it, it's so much easier. But when you're isolated and it's just yourself trying to figure out how to maintain, keep going, finances, it becomes a hard thing, and it's you just don't have the bandwidth to keep going, because you can't even talk about, like, yesterday injecting this thing was painful. And people are saying, but oh goodness, what are they injecting? Exactly. I remember, there was a weekend we went away in the course of when I began to use this pen. I think it was sometime when we went to Elementaita Anna. And I wanted to ask the hotel, can I please have a fridge in my room, because I have diabetic medicine. And then I remember Don said, you don't have to put it in a fridge. So I didn't have to go asking for a fridge for diabetic, because it feels like, to tell people it's for me to lose weight, I need a fridge. And I said, wait a minute, is that their weight or is it mine? You do what I need to do. But I think, Nyokabi, if we have a community, it's so much easier.
Just to add on to that, there's one thing that we also forget, because there's the fear of gaining it. We normally will settle at a weight. So even if you're trying to lose weight, there's always that phrase of, I'm struggling for the last 5 pounds, meaning you're keeping a weight at a certain level. So if you think, I'm going to keep that weight, your body will respond. I'm a big believer in the power of intention. If you think, I will keep that weight, because I was able to move, I stayed at 85 kilos for 2 years. If you drop to 75, you could stay at 75 now. Because if you stayed at 85 and maintaining, means your calorie deficit was in balance. So just try and find the balance of your new calorie deficit, and you'll stay there. The temptation, as I said before, is like, no, I can eat anything now. Because when I was on Wegovy, I was eating anything and I was losing weight. That's where the mind gets tricked. Because the body is like, no, you can't. Because I will put on weight. So you've got to understand, okay, I've got to really not be on a diet, but just disciplined. Mindful. Okay.
Hi, Doctor.
Hi.
Hi, guys. I'm Angela. I think you've answered the question of the supply chain, which
Yeah.
was my question.
Yeah.
Because we're having this discussion about the shortage of
Mm.
Chutney in the market, being able to bring Chutney into Kenya, Africa, and some of the restrictions that are
Mm.
there. So my question was around, what happens if I start the journey now, and then I've got another 2 more pens to go, and before me you say, now that because I have honest conversations that are affecting
That's true.
every woman
Yeah.
in the room, or it's a journey. It's inevitable. Yeah. So we can start with a safe space, but how do we start opening up? And I think I need to thank Fatma for opening up a platform where we speak about it. I'm on that. I mean, I'm very active on it. But I told her this evening that it's giving me a voice, and I think what you're giving us is hope, because we can end up in a pitfall of hopelessness
Yeah.
just because we can't shake off this weight.
Absolutely.
And thank you for that. So those are my 2 cents.
Thank you very much. It's really nice to hear such fantastic words, because the mental health side, again, I give talks on mental health, because I've always known, the reason I left surgery, I trained as a surgeon first, but I was like, I can't stand in theater for 3 hours with somebody who does not speak back, because that's just not my life. Mental health is everything. You know, and actually, when they talk about mental health, it's always taken in a negative connotation, but it's what you've just said, that ability to be able to help somebody go through this journey. You know, if somebody, for example, financially can't afford it, we want to be there. We want to be able to create a place where, Amina is fantastic. She's got an amazing group, going from strength to strength, just talking about coaching in the menopause. How do you navigate all the things that are going on in the menopause? And, we want to be, obviously we're going to be working very closely with her in trying to see how this message of hope, and I like what you said, I've never thought of it like that, of hope can matter. Because I had a husband in London.
A husband came to you. You didn't have a husband.
No,
Be very
I
careful.
had a husband come to me in London. Come to me in London, and he just said, "Doc, thank you so much." Nigerian. So my wife now, she's coming to church again. Just stopped. She just said, "I watch on TV." Post-COVID, because she put on so much weight, she just said, "No, I can't." And, it was British, Nigerian churches. And he said, "Thank you so much." And she had come to pick up a pen, and he was there with her. I said, "I just wanted to meet who this guy." So there's that side we never talk about. So that hope is really, really impressive. So yeah, and would want your input for this. This is not about our ownership. Your input, like what you just said, is fantastic. Yeah.
Maybe I can just speak to that. First of all, introduce myself. I'm Susan. And infinity is something that I've always wanted to do or felt is necessary. Going to a spa isn't just about going and your massage and you come out and feel good for a couple of hours and go right back to your problem. It's about holistic being. And so when I met Dr. Don, it was like, the answer to all, the final piece of the puzzle, if you will. We were just having a conversation yesterday. One of the things I said to him is, it's really the same question you had. There's a level of anxiety if I started down a path that am I going to be able to finish this path? It's the person who's going to walk with me, who's going to be with me throughout this entire journey. And we love it when you're here, but we want somebody who's going to be here, or we want to have the sense that there are people who are going to be walking with me, whether you're physically here or not.
Exactly.
And the reality is the world we live in now, you don't need to be physically here to be here.
Yeah.
So actually what we're looking at as we talk about this community, and different people have different levels of comfort with this. You may be comfortable injecting yourself. There are a lot of people who are not. Just, can't do it. For a lot of people, I don't know if I'm making the right progress. Am I going as fast or as slow as I should be going? You talked a lot about your weight related to your blood pressure. I may be taking this and I'm worrying about what is this doing to my blood pressure, what is it doing to other aspects of my health. And we think, so as we put this community together and
talking about doing this in the coming weeks, it is going to be to address all of those things, to actually have somebody we will have somebody here, right,
Yeah.
who has medical
Yeah.
training, who will be there to advise, to dispense, so you don't have to wait until the next trip.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
You need a refill, it's here. You know, if there needs to be a consultation, that will also be set up. But so that this is a journey that is going to happen, you know, as it would regardless.
Yeah.
You know, Kabi kind of said, this is something of a life journey.
Mm.
You know, you may be off and on, you may be on it and then you're off it, or you may be, this is what you're doing today, and then, you know, you decide I'm going to take a different approach. But all of it,
Yeah.
you know, being part of this community means you have the support throughout, from start to finish. Well, never finishes.
Absolutely. I've got some, the journey part is so important because we want to create continuity. And what you've said is important in terms of supply chain. And I'm really going to try my hardest, apart from the bottlenecks that are there. And the bottlenecks are global now with HRT as well. We'll work hard to overcome them and have the continuity here. We're going to have a physician here, a doctor based here to deal with all this. So it's not like, when is your next bag? No, there'll be somebody here. The whole team will be operating. There'll be times it'll be virtual, time will be face to face. But creating this is, you know, what Susan and I are really committed to doing, to try and create that, as you said, holistic wellness that's also evidence-based, and that we know that we're doing things that we can reproduce. So yeah, great points. Oh, sorry. No, go ahead.
Thank you. My name is Leah. I am in my 50s, so the reason I got interested in this was because we talked about menopause and all the related issues. So currently I'm struggling with hot flashes, and of course, weight, big deal. So I have 3 questions. Is it an injection? Because you're calling it a pen and an injection. Kujidunga kama ile ya daktari ama? Because we.
This is what it is.
That's what I was struggling with. Is it an
So
injection?
they call it a pen because so diabetics call their medications pens. So when they've got insulin inside it, it's called a pen.
So there's a needle, eh?
So that's what it is.
Oh gosh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it looks really nice from there.
Yeah.
Like it's something you just touch on your skin. So I wanted to clarify that.
Yeah.
I'm sure
We
the
can-
others who haven't seen it who are wondering
Yeah,
the
you could just
same.
pass around.
And
This
then-
is just saline.
And then my second question is around the contraindications if people are on any medical, I think that's what you're just talking about. So I was going back to you, Jackie, to find out if your pressure was still high when you started. I think a number of us at this age, if you go through surgery, if you've gone through some of these hormonal-related issues, you find that your pressure just comes from nowhere. So how does that work with it? And then, of course, going back to my first comment and what you started with, Doc. So if I lose weight, am I gonna stop all this? Because I have a fan, I have to go to meetings every day, I have to stand in front of people and I have to tell them, okay, like she was saying, I've just told, I'm just a woman, I'm in my normal. So now this time is hot flashes. The last time I had periods, you didn't complain. When I was pregnant, you didn't complain. So what's the matter now? Now I'm in my menopause, so please, I have to do this. I've been doing this everywhere I go. Yeah. And actually, I got some women now on board and feeling more confident because they said, you did well, because many of us were hiding and dying in this heat. So I tell women, get the fan if you stand in front of people, because when you get nervous, it starts. Just go ahead and do it. So if you tell me that if I lose this weight, it's so uncomfortable, especially what you are talking about at night. Every hour you have to wake up, throw the blankets, lose sleep for 20, 30 minutes. You have to wake up early and go to work. So we discussed this somewhere, and I'm sure some of you have been in this conversation. In our 50s and in our 40s, we are probably in the most productive
age. This is when we are CEOs, this is when you are senior managers, this is when you're doing your business, you really, but this thing keeps on pulling you down. You wake up in the morning, what time are you going to go to work? You're dressing up, you're sweating. So you have to stop so that the sweat can get finished.
Yeah.
So that's really, so if you tell me that if I lose this weight, my life will go back to normal, you can inject me now. Just
That's a great question.
Maybe I just answer Leah about I'm not on high blood pressure medication. By the time I was done with the first first group, I'd actually come to the point where the doctor said, I've got to take you off the medication. So I've been off medication for hypertension for almost, it's my second year now. And so when the doctor was telling me, I'm not happy with your figures, it hadn't got back to a point where he needed to put me back on medication. So at least in this instant, I'm not on any type of medication except for the aches and pains ones that would be contraindicated. So outside of that, the Daktari then would be able to say what kind of medication.
So the very few, if you're diabetic type 1, if you've got type 1 diabetes and you're on insulin, you cannot use this. So that's a complete contraindication. Then there are what they call relative contraindications. If you've got autoimmune conditions, there's a long list, and those are for people who are on active therapies. So you could have autoimmune conditions like lupus and still use it, but if you're in active therapy, then they'll say, listen, make sure your therapy is actually complete, and that's where the consultation comes in. Your question about, I think it was the British Heart Foundation, no, Cardiothoracic Society, one of them said they actually are recommending it because it is improving all the markers for cardiovascular disease. Blood pressure, blood sugar, weight, all the things that they struggle to get people to do, it works. So that's what I'd look at. In terms of hot flushes, so I'm going to put my other hat on. Being a doctor who's pro-HRT, estrogen therapy is actually the most effective way to combat hot flushes. Because when you have hot flushes, what happens is there's a part of your brain that's a switch that tells your body when it's getting hot or cold. They're called hot flushes at night because our body temperature tends to drop about 1 to 2 degrees, and that's when you get our best sleep. So that's why you can't sleep when it's hot. So when your body temperature doesn't drop, you're up in the middle of the night doing this, but it happens during the day as well. So estrogen is actually the best way to combat it. Not to say that if you get healthier and you lose weight and you feel better, that they won't improve, because your general cardiovascular state is in a better place.
Hi, my name is Kathleen. So what are you eating, Jackie, while you're in this process? Because I just remembered what that doctor said, just get out of your intermittent, get out of keto, just eat like normal. What is that normal? And I'm asking that question because at our age now, there's a lot of stuff that, we are all going through. I know that I have really been stuck on the thing of, it's not so much what you eat, but what time you eat. So I'm still trying to work that around and seeing how it relates to what Doc is saying. And I would really appreciate if you can speak to that. And so when you say, just eat, you're normal. What's normal?
Wow. My normal has gone through so much because of everything that I'd been eating in previous diets, what had been restricted, you can't touch this, you can't do that. So my normal is not English has gone. My normal is not necessarily what's regular food for everybody. But what I've found is that I'm not as restrictive as I was. So let me give you an example. Today I was meeting my former interns for lunch in the afternoon. And so there was a typical, Kenyan meal. There was beef stew, there was chapati, there was cabbage, and there was mixed vegetable with pumpkin. That was the meal. So I took the vegetable with pumpkin, I took the beef stew, I took a little bit of cabbage, and then I looked at the chapati and I said, it's all right. You can eat chapati. And I took one. Ordinarily, I'd have taken possibly two. The young intern, one of the male that was there, he's 25, ate seven. I counted.
Quarters.
Seven.
Whole
No,
chapatis.
whole. 7 chapatis, and he's like this. You know, so you look at that and say, for him that's normal. For me, that one that be calling the doctor to pick me up because I'll have keeled over. Yesterday, for example, lunchtime, I had half my regular portion of chips and half my regular portion of meat. Breakfast, I had nothing because I wasn't hungry. So I'm not typical right now. But I think what Don tried to get me to say was this. If you want to eat it, eat mindfully. Eat it, but then also know, because what I've learned now is my full. I'm telling you, I go full, I stop. I leave it. And because I'm a good African woman, I don't throw it away. I say pack it for the next meal. But I stop, and I'm learning that. Because in the beginning, before I could figure out my stop trigger, I would eat a little bit more, and then I would feel so uncomfortable and horrible. It's like everything, it's like you're trying to stuff things beyond, and it's up over here already. So I'd say, Kathleen, I'm really learning not to stress about what I eat, because that was my previous default. I overstressed, and I was so restrictive in what I ate, and the results were not as good as I needed them to be. So I'm trying to be a bit more relaxed around food. I'm trying to be not so kiboko, so that if I eat the thing that is not meant to be eaten, I feel guilty. So if I'm going to go from here, I probably won't eat supper, but I may coax Don that we pass through the car shop and buy an ice cream stick. And then I'll say, that's my supper, I'll eat an ice cream lolly. Not healthy, but it's what I felt like I wanted to eat. But that's the thing, because I can eat it and I'm still losing weight. So me, I don't know if I'm giving bad advice. I'm just telling you this is who I am right now, with a little bit more freedom from the restrictions that I'd lived with for so long, that I just said some things I just didn't touch. But yet when you crave, and then when you finally let go and you touch, that's it. It's like uncontrollable. And you eat 4, 5, 6, an entire box of McVitie's is gone in one sitting, because you had restricted yourself for the past 3 months. You had not touched a single cookie. The day you were unleashed, that box went. And you said, it's all right, tomorrow is another day.
And so the answer to your question really quickly.
The scientific one, not...
That's 100%. Again, when I tell my patients this, it's almost like I'm rubbishing the medical community, saying eat fruit and vegetable, and this would not be an issue. The world doesn't exist in this utopian state. We have lives. Life is, complicated. In terms of the windows, I'll give you a study that was released, I think, at the end of last year, that the body, we've got what we call rhythms of how we wake up and how we sleep and how we process. But they found out now that it was actually a falsehood, that if you eat after this time or this time, you're going to gain weight. Your body just says, what are the net calories I'm taking in and what am I burning? However, when you eat just before you go to bed, there's that whole thing of, you put on that weight. Your body will just recalibrate the daily thing. It's the window. So if you stop eating at a certain time, you just have a bigger fasting time. So it's the science behind it was it's just intermittent fasting. That's what it is. Like, don't eat after this time, because then you have a larger starvation period and the body switches to burn fat. But it doesn't matter what you eat. Because the people who work shifts and they eat in the middle of the night and they go to sleep during the day, and they do that all the time. So evidence coming out that it's just that calorie deficit. Okay, I think, Makina, it's 8:30, I think we are done.
As Makina's coming, I want to just say one thing. The picture that was put out there was a campaign that I did with Amina on Fabulous at Any Age, and this was the outfit that you saw that I wore then. And we did that in December last year, December last year. And so when we did the photo shoot, November. And that was when I was at 140 kilos when I was wearing that outfit. And I cinched myself with everything inside me so that I could at least look a little bit. But what I've decided for this journey with Jackie is that every time we have this conversation, I'll wear the same outfit so that we can definitely see the trajectory, because now I'm at 130. That's almost 10 kilos from the time I wore it. I can actually feel my collarbones, something I'd not felt for a long time. So the next time we come back here, the journey with Jackie, you'll find that this thing is not closing across here. That will be the next one. So that's.
Wonderful, ladies. I hope you have picked one thing or two that you can take home. And also, with Dr. Dawn, as he said, it's a journey in infinity. We are with us. You're going to be here with us. So if it's about working out, we are here to do the program for you. If it's the diet, we have a wonderful chef who's going to create some good menus for you so that you can keep up with the diet, and also to make sure that you stay in shape. As you said, that she didn't have support. She had support in the States, but now you have support here with us at Infinity Spa. I would like all of you to say thank you to Dr. Dawn for all that he has done for us. And also I'd like to thank Jackie, brave enough to stand here. We need such encouragement, because we're also very shy sometimes to say the journey that we have been through. Yes, we've all been in all those yo-yo diets. I've done all that you've mentioned. Even those ones of only the eggs. Yes, and it's a journey and it's a struggle. But now we can all struggle together here in Infinity Spa. And on top of that, I would like to thank Dr. Susan to make it possible. Yeah, she has created a journey for us to have the program slim possible. So we're creating a program, signing people in, and then we'll be writing to you. That's why we requested for your emails, because we're going to do a newsletter to inform you, to encourage you through all the messages that we'll be sending to you. So I would like to say thank you for the time, and also apologize. I know we started 30 minutes late, and I apologize for that. Next time we'll make sure we are in shape and to make sure everything is okay. Asanteni sana, karibuni tena. Thank you, ladies. And good night. So we can all now talk and discuss whatever you want to discuss within ourselves.